As we wrap up Women's Month, let's stay with that gender-based violence theme and to discuss this a bit more further in terms of what really needs to happen to turn things around when it comes to gender-based violence. We are now joined by clinical psychologist Dr. Keitumetse Tumi Mashego, and she joins us now via our video link. Dr. Keitumetse, thank you so much for your time this evening here in SABC News. I mean, just looking at that story and the number of women who have gone through gender-based violence and also having an impact on their families, where does it seem we are going wrong in this fight against gender-based violence? I mean, there are so many NGOs, there are so many campaigns that continue to highlight the scourge in our country. Why does it seem as if we are losing the battle of gender-based violence in the country?
Good evening, and thank you for having me. I believe what's happening regarding gender-based violence, it's a reflection of how wounded we are as society and how the wounded are not seeking help and are progressively getting worse. And therefore, that's what we're seeing perpetuating in society. And it's quite sad because the young generation are seeing this and they're watching this and it's all they know. So we've basically normalized the abnormal when it comes to GBV, and there's still so much stigma, even in 2025, to seek psychological help for not only the males but also the victims of such, so we really still have a long way, sadly, in South Africa to really deal with what's happening in our society.
And what needs to change, Dr. Tumi, in terms of trying to reinforce this fight against gender-based violence? I mean, you speak about the victims here, you speak about, the perpetrators as well, in terms of changing their mindset. What else needs, what can we do in terms of changing, the scourge, which has really riddled South Africa?
I think it's really starting to communicate about, what it is that violence is against women or against children or against the vulnerable. And it's not just women, but of course, most of the cases is seen within women and children. So we really need to start communicating about, the wrongness of it, because I think it's not communicated enough because it was normalized from generations prior. So we really need to stand up against it from that angle. But also it's a systematic problem in that the legal systems, the government as well around these issues, there really needs a lot to be done so that perpetrators are found guilty, but they actually are arrested, remain in prison. Because I think what also fails the victims is the system itself that is supposed to protect them, that it's not doing that. So we really need to talk about what it can be done to protect the victims, because the abusers or the perpetrators are always wrong and there is no excuse for their behavior, but also to understand where they are coming from. So they carry, a lot of pain, and it's not an excuse for their behavior, of course, but it's just to understand that they are doing what they are doing because of where they come from. So there's really a need to look at, the environments where we are raising men and how these men actually tend to become parents and how they parent and what is normalized in their lives. So there's a lot of pain that's happening out there, and we really need to find ways to talk about how to handle that pain. Unfortunately, with psychological problems, if you don't see an issue or that you have a problem, you will not benefit from any intervention. So the first step is to also, talk about how, people have a problem. That is why we are seeing what we're seeing happening in our society.
And Dr. Tumi, do you think that there is political will in terms of addressing issues around gender-based violence? I mean, we've seen the president even try and tackle it head on from the highest office in the land. At the same time, when you speak to GBV victims, you also heard there in that insert, some are even saying that the perpetrators, don't even get, enough time behind bars. Some of the women that I've also spoken to, I mean, they say that you don't even get help when it comes to police stations and the police's involvement in GBV cases. Is there political will to deal with GBV?
From where we stand, it doesn't seem so because, as the victims do say, the perpetrators are released, they're not charged, or even if they are found guilty, there is so much corruption happening, in the legal system that they don't stay behind bars. So, the victims are also fearful of their lives, even just reporting the cases, they're not taken seriously. So there really needs to be an overhaul of the entire system because GBV is a systemic problem. And remember also we have different types of GBV, meaning we do have what we call psychological or emotional abuse. Some of the scars are not even evident. And I think that is where it becomes problematic sometimes, in that people don't actually understand how deep rooted, the impact of GBV is. And even though we do, have campaigns that talk about it, I think it's really, we are in a crisis mode at this moment, and really there needs to be a change. Otherwise, this will be only get worse in future.
And what would you say are the common challenges that we continue to see as a country in the fight against gender-based violence? Some of the issues that many continue to highlight and that seem as if, it's very difficult for them to be addressed.
It has been normalized, that sometimes there is fights. I mean, when you work with even people of this current generations, when you talk about GBV, some of the things have been normalized. And I think that's where we need to understand that we have normalized abnormality. It's not okay for someone to be angry to an extent that they hurt you physically or emotionally, calling you names and saying things to you. So I think we really need to have that conversation, not necessarily in one-on-one, but really where we have sessions with groups of people in a non-threatening manner to, really emphasize that, some of the things that happen that we have normalized are not normal at all. If you are fighting with someone, it's not okay to beat them. It's not okay to, if someone doesn't want to be in a relationship anymore, to continue to, make their lives a living hell. So we really need to have those conversations and to show that this is wrong, but to also have legal systems that can actually make people to be accountable or for them to pay for the crimes. So the corruption that happens in the legal system, that also needs to be prioritized so that victims can report it and see the perpetrators actually behind bars. Because sometimes, when people report these cases, the police officers sometimes say because nothing has happened, they cannot do anything. And then unfortunately, then, a death happens or something gruesome like we've seen in these cases happens before there's action, before there's, before it makes it to the news. So there's a need to change, but also the people in charge needs to really make this a priority and to understand that we are in crisis mode when it comes to GBV in our country.
Dr. Tumi, thank you so much for your time and for your insights. That's a clinical psychologist, Dr. Keitumetse Tumi Mashego, just giving us the insights there when it comes to gender-based violence, of course, as we wrap up Women's Month.